end of 2019, to be honest. And then from there, I've been working with UCFB University, International Football Business undergraduate program. And then on the side, I also work with a pro player futsal group, which is developing futsal programs across the globe on behalf of Sporting Club de Portugal and Benfica. And in my spare time, because I still got some more hours left in the day, I also coach #United Ladies. I'm the head coach for the senior side over there.
Brilliant. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll touch on all three of those. So the first one, if we go to the sort of lecturing role and how that's developing, because that's quite a new organisation, isn't it?
Yeah, UCFB has been, I say, in terms of education, yeah, it's very new. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not 100% up on their history, but I think that, from around 2010, they had a small campus up at Burnley. They then evolved to Manchester, to the Etihad, and then around about 2013, come down to Wembley. I work at the Wembley campus. We've got 13 programs in relation to football business. I cover the international football business element. And we've got about 2,400 students across both campuses, and a 35% increase from last year. So the university is growing. And they've got the GIS hub as well, which is the Global Institute of Sport, which does all their postgraduate and executive courses.
Excellent. So on the futsal side, so how did you get into the futsal? Because I know you weren't necessarily futsal when we spoke. You weren't talking futsal, but how did you get into the futsal world?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Actually, back in 2004, I split up with the missus. Okay, so I thought, well, you know what, I've got to go and follow something I want to do in my life. And I've always been a football coach. I've got an A licence both in the UK and with OFC. It was one of my former roles before turning to UCFB. I was technical director for the Cook Islands Football Association. Prior to that, I've worked across 5 different continents. I've got a street soccer business in Qatar that's on hold at the moment. I've worked with Inter Milan. I've worked in North America with San Francisco 49ers, even though they're not a football team as such, but I was thrown into there on Portland Timbers. But it all started off in 2004 down in Brazil. I decided to pack my bags, go and have a look. I wanted to work in one of the big football clubs. I never had a job offer. I just knocked on some doors. The first door shut on me, which was Corinthians. And then I was in Sao Paulo. I was sitting in a bar one night and speaking to this guy, and he happened to be a lecturer at Sao Paulo University, and he was doing a study on futsal. And he asked me if I wanted to help him do some research, watch some games around the area. So I was there for about 8 months. But in between that, I picked up a job with Sao Paulo, working with the youngsters. Under 10s, I was sleeping in their campus, looking after them, teaching them English, coaching them a bit of football, and then going out to do futsal. And then so that futsal, it was on a back burner as a principal. All the other things sort of took over in between, but I've always had an interest in futsal. And then I come back. I picked it up again in about 2014, 15. I started a little futsal club for kids, but again, ended up going out to the Cook Islands soon after, so that was put on hold. And then with UCFB, I was speaking, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's the international business manager for Sporting Lisbon, Nuno Cardoso, and I said to him, why haven't you looked at developing your futsal brand? Because you're one of the best clubs. They just happened to win the Champions League that year as well. I said, lesser countries really could do the support with coach education, other types of programs we put together. And they loved the idea, and they thought, yep, it was really good. However, that was back in August. And then what's happened is obviously COVID has kicked in and financial implications have hit everywhere. And the demand, we've done sort of feasibility studies around the clubs and various organisations around Europe. And the response was fantastic. And when we presented that to Sporting, they looked at it and went, I'm not sure we're going to be able to meet this demand on our own. So they reached out to Benfica, and even though they're massive rivals and business links, they work together. And Benfica agreed to help out as well. So once we get going, we've got 2 big clubs looking to help develop futsal around. And then eventually, if that becomes sufficient enough, then my duties at UCFB I shall trim down.
Well, I think obviously Portugal are quite high in the rankings already at futsal, aren't they? I think they're currently third in Europe. So obviously it is a big part of Portuguese sort of football, and football and futsal is a big part of their history, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it is. In terms of, obviously they've got big sovereignty links to Brazil. It's massive. It's a part of their life in Brazil because they don't have the space. So the small-sided games is, evident there. They start off with football de salo and then they progress into futsal, and then they don't pick up the conventional game until later on in their teens. And a lot of the clubs on the continent, the futsal element is a big part of their educational process for a footballer. So they spend lots of years spending more hours doing futsal than they will playing football, and then they cross over depending on their skill, ability, and preference, really.
What's your opinion? What's your personal opinion on what the scenario with the futsal funding being withdrawn from the FA here?
Yeah, it's a strange one. Look, I get it that you can't please everyone because of you've got to make some cutbacks. So I get it that they've got to make that big situation, but then to me it doesn't make sense how you strip absolutely everything. How do you strip the international teams? How you then strip the top league, and then you've got no system in place to even acknowledge that futsal. There's nothing. So I don't get it. I don't get the thought process behind it. And then they're still claiming that they're the national governing body. It's like they don't want to let go of it. But so you've just dangled the clubs with nothing. So they've got. It's frustrating because futsal could potentially take off in the UK to a good level, a really good level. There's a lot of interest at youth level, and there's a lot of ad hoc organisations running futsal type programs. I'm not saying they're pure futsal, but there's obviously a lot of interest from the parents and the kids to get involved in futsal.
And you have all the professional clubs as well, don't they? They use futsal as well as part of their programs.
Yeah, I do think they do something. I won't say it's compulsory across all the clubs, but I do think a lot of teams tap into organisations. And if you look at some of the NFS clubs, there's a couple of their top clubs that do tap into the professional clubs and help them. But again, it's still disjointed. There should be some sort of collaboration there. I mean, if we look at some of the leagues in Europe, you've got Juventus now that are building their own futsal facilities, and it's going to be an integral part of their youth program. Which obviously still it's an integral part of pretty much all the European clubs. Barcelona's, Portuguese, as we mentioned. Paris Saint-Germain have got a great new facility opening up, and again, futsal is going to be part of that. So I am a little bit amazed that the big Premier League clubs haven't got that as a compulsory part of the curriculum for the academies, especially in youngsters. So if you're looking at between all of these clubs now have academy sessions for 8 to 12-year-olds, and that's the perfect age to start getting kids playing futsal. And that really should be part of the thought processes there, putting blocks in. They can easily afford to develop a little sports hall and indoor space. They all put the domes up. I don't understand why they haven't done that yet. But obviously, I do understand because it's a business element. Is it really going to be that productive? The turnover of kids in football clubs is high anyway. Investing in futsal, is there really any evidence out there that suggests that they do transform into the football industry and going to make them money? So I still think the glass is half empty with that one with them. It should be, in my eyes, half full.
No, I'm on your side. I totally agree. I think it's very short-sighted. There's lots of pros for futsal, and the technical side of the game. Brings out the best of the players, as you could tell from, like I say, Portugal. All the players that use the futsal tool for most of their junior ages are a lot more technical than the majority of our older players. Anyway, they're coming through now, but in England, aren't they? So
yeah, I mean, like I said, proof's in the pudding. If you have a look at who are the most technical, exciting players in world football, they if you was to do a pie chart, I'm sure Brazil, South American countries would have the majority of that pie chart. So, and they keep doing it. And every year in football business, when I look at it, transfers that take place, the majority of them are coming from Brazil. So there must be some evidence suggesting that actually we should be focusing more on futsal within our academies.
I think in most leagues that you watch across Europe, there's always a sprinkling of Brazilian players that are playing in those teams, aren't there?
Absolutely, yeah. And and if you look at their biographies, they all talk about how they played futsal, football to Salo at some point in their in their careers or their journeys. And it's the same with the Spanish players as well. They all talk about it. You get involved in it. So if you look at probably one of the most exciting players in the Premier League at the moment, Bruno Fernandes, and again, he was exposed to it at Sporting for many years. So, and then we've got the Coutinhos who was in the Premier League, the Firminos. They're all, you put them in as technical abilities that some of the top players in the Premier League. And again, just have a look what they did.
No, definitely. So what you mentioned, obviously you've been around the world in different guises. Have you ever, or have you come across, a lot of language barriers for yourself when you're trying to work in these countries? You said you went to Brazil. You were obviously in the Cook Islands. Yeah. Was language a barrier for you, being English, or is it something that it was you could get around it, with the.
Yeah, it's a good question, and one that I get asked often by students. So you must be fluent in Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and all that, and I go, no. Really not. And do you know what? It's not arrogance from my behalf there. It's there was a genuine desire to want to learn. That's why I put myself in these environments, because I wanted to learn. Part of it, a small part, not a massive part, but a small part of it, I was open to learning the language. And but when I was out in Brazil, they were like, no, you must teach English all the time, speak English all the time. Don't, try and speak Spanish or Portuguese. Just keep it. And I was quite pleased at that, because obviously my Spanish and Portuguese at that time wasn't the best. And then the same when I got offered a job in Inter Milan, I was like, oh my goodness, because my first conversation in the first hour, everyone was speaking to me in Italian, and I'm like, this is not going to go down too well. But once I got past the initial introduction, realised the people that I was speaking to weren't the people I was going to be liaising with, and these guys were English, Italian speaking, and again, they wanted me to speak in English, because a lot of the players they were dragging into their academies are from Africa, and a lot of them speak English as a second language, and across Europe, where again, English is a second language, and they're pretty much more advanced than us English are at speaking English themselves. So in terms of the Cook Islands, no, there was no problem out there, because they're English anyway. Got Commonwealth connections. They dual passports with New Zealand, so everyone was speaking English. But they obviously had their own form of language as well, part of the Maori culture. Picked up little bits, but I wouldn't be able to have a conversation in that. And Qatar, again, because it's a diverse, community, Arabic was very hard. I didn't pick up that, but again, everybody I dealt with spoke English. So I'm very fortunate to be English in that sense, but it wasn't the arrogance. It was just that people preferred that.
So how long were you technical director with the Cook Islands?
Yeah, a couple of years, just under 2 years. But it all started off in 2015, to be honest. I was on holiday. We were getting married out there, me and the missus. And unfortunately, there was a hurricane which wiped out our original wedding destination, which was in Vanuatu, and unfortunately wiped out our wedding resort. So the agency said, look, we're going to have to make some changes. You're going to get married in Fiji. But in order to go to Fiji, we're going to also give you an extra week in the Cook Islands as compensation. So we're like, okay, whatever. So went out to the Cook Islands, and this was in 2015, and just cycling around the island one day, and we come across the Football Association, and I was watching this group of men play football. They weren't kitted up; they looked like they were just playing guys in the park, as we see across it. And I was just watching, and this guy to the side of me was leaning over the railings, and just started conversation with him. I was like, who are these? And he went, no, these are the men's national team. We've got the World Cup qualifiers coming up for 2018. He said, we've got a qualification tournament next week. So they had a pre-qualification tournament. And I was like, oh, excellent. And he said, oh, where are you from? So I gave him a bit of my history of football. And he's like, well, what do you think? These are the methods that you're putting in place. You're a little bit behind. and you're not going to get yourself, organised. He said, well, we'll go out there and coach it. Well, go on, then you want to give it all the salt, get out there and coach it. So I looked at him and he said, just go over there and say, Lee said, by the way, I still didn't know who Lee was. I just say, Lee said, take the session. So I walked over to the pitch and I said, look, Lee over there has told me to take the session for the next 40 minutes. And this guy honestly just bowed and just backed off. And suddenly I've got about 20 guys looking at me. So I've done a session. And on the back of that, he offered me a technical director's job,
Wow.
which I ended up taking not until 2016.
That's crazy. Well, how things can happen.
Mad, yeah.
So touching on the roles that you've been in.
Exactly. Sort of message.
So touching on the roles that you've done and you're currently in, which is the role you've enjoyed the most so far?
To be honest, I'm very lucky. There's been nothing that I don't enjoy. I enjoy lecturing with the students. The fact of interacting with them, sharing stories, sharing industry skills, and what's needed to work in the real world. I love that part. I don't love all the marking. I'll tell you, that can be tiresome. But I love interacting with the students. And this futsal project, I've got the buzz for that. I can't wait to get started on that. At the moment, obviously, I've got nothing tangible to say, oh, this is great or what. We've just got ideas at the moment. And obviously those ideas need to be shared with all the stakeholders in futsal to help it get going. But there's potentially some exciting programs that are lined up on that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if that can really take off. I'm hoping it does, and that we don't get more bad news because of COVID and financial situations.
So is the plan that's going to that project's going to start sort of April time, is it?
Well, I'm not too sure about April because I don't think indoor futsal can go back until I think it's the end of May or middle of May, and then it's about international flights as well, because it's very hard to get people over here from Benfica Sports in Lisbon or vice versa, and encourage the coaches to go out there until the flights are all clear, international areas that we're working with.
Yeah, sure. So which role do you think you've achieved the most out of, with the goals that have been set and objectives so far in your sort of your footballing journey?
Yeah, I think it's there's lots of success. I call success anyway. I mean, it's very hard to measure success because when we measure success, we either look at people becoming millionaires or we look at them, coaching at the top of the tree. But, there is another level of success, and that's one, staying in the job, two, doing enough to help that organisation develop. So if I start off with my career back in 96, I started off at the Dean School Sports College in Fundersley, and I was the manager of the community facilities. I ended up helping that develop into quite a big local sports area. We had outside Astra courts, we had an indoor tennis centre, which was the first of its kind within a mainstream school, with gyms, studio classes, and then we had 2 sports halls that was already there, and we just filled it in. So we ended up turning that into a small business, which was turning over £250,000 a year for a part-time sports centre. So that was quite successful. Then I went into my own business of starting up, coaching programs with primary schools and helping CPD and staff training development, and that ended up running for about 15 years. So the longevity itself was success. We probably come across multiple schools within Essex, covering lots of them. And at one stage, I had 16 staff working with me full time on that. So that was quite good. And then when you look at football projects, I've always been quite successful. Now, I was saying that, I've won leagues and cups, and that's it. Every club I've been with, I've won something, and then it's a case of moving on to the next challenge. And I've never had a desire to be a top Premier League manager. I quite like working with the youth, and at the moment the ladies side. So I've got a little project with Hashtag at the moment where I'm looking at trying to take them up through the leagues with no money.
So what league #ladies in currently?
So we're in the National League, and we're in Tier 4 is what we call it. So if you look at WSL in the Championship, and then you've got Tier 3, which is split into South and North, and then the South has a league below that, 2 leagues below that, Southwest, Southeast. So we're in the Southeast. So we're in the top. Let's say top. We're Ipswich are the best team in our league, but we're behind them, and we're second at the moment.
Is that because they have more support from the professional club itself, or is that just the fact that they've got the budget?
Yeah, they've got support from both angles. They've got support from both angles, really. They've got support from the professional club, but they've also got massive support from the FA themselves, because we look at some of the pathways of women's football. Essex, RTC, they don't really have a partner club to work with. So the 2 top clubs, I suppose, in Essex are ourselves, and then you could put Billericay just underneath us, and they also play in our league. So, but they for some reason, the Essex RTC didn't want to partner up with us. They decided to go to Ipswich, which is out the county, into Suffolk. And all their players get passed into there. But not only that, all their funding gets passed into there. So in terms of an organisation, yeah, they've probably got a budget of around 200,000 a year to do whatever they've got to do. But they've also got an education programme on top of that. So the girls involved in Ipswich are playing full time. They're playing in the National League at the weekends, and then they've got their I'd say their Premier League 2 in midweek, and their college program. And then us, we just live off sponsorships, really, and the same thing. The girls are getting paid, and ultimately we only train twice a week. So if you're looking at metrics, it's an unfair playing field, but that's pretty much the same with all the teams in our league.
Realistically, Ipswich should be way above where they are, really, with the resources and the infrastructure they have.
Joe and the Ipswich team, they're a fantastic club, fantastic people. And, this year, because of COVID, last year COVID stopped them from going up. But saying that, last year it was very close. It could have been us, them, and 2 other clubs. This year, we've only had probably a quarter of the season, and it's too early to say who will be. But at the moment, it's us and Ipswich that have got a bit of a gap. You would have to say, look, if there's some way that we can help Ipswich go up, because they've got a number of England internationals as well. And what you don't want to do is stop these girls from, progressing in their career. And Tier 4 is not the level they should be playing at for a consistent basis. Ideally, we don't want them in the league for the 3 years in a row. And that's from a coach perspective, not a club perspective, because I want to see these girls get pushed. And I want to see them playing in the Championship. I want to see them playing in the WSL if they can. So somehow we've got to try and unite and try and, if we can, get them up a level, because they will hold themselves well, and I wouldn't be surprised in 2 years if they're knocking on the door for the Championship as well.
Yeah,
that's where we want to be as well. But we'll be following them.
Can have both. Yeah, both. So yeah, with Ipswich, obviously, if they've got those players, if they're not going to move up, then those players are going to leave, aren't they? And it's going to be a detriment to their team and the league as well.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? Yes and no. You'd think on football principles and those with ambition, that would definitely be the case. But women's football is a different breed. They're very loyal. They're loyal to the cause, the group, the managers, and I'm no doubt that Joe's got them all on his side, and they're very young still. So if he said, look, 1 more year together, I'll be very surprised if they all left. But the other side is he's still got the academy going. So even if 2 or 3 do move on to better clubs, he's got the academy. He's still getting the feeder system from the RTC. I'm not too sure if he's going to get all the funding from the FA, because I'm sure that's being reduced and cut. So he could have some financial issues. But I mean, obviously that conversation you need with Joe, not me. I'm just guessing.
So with the hashtag, obviously that must have been quite an interesting concept, having hashtag come in, because it's a joint league, is a joint club, isn't it? For yourselves.
Yeah. So we was C&K Basildon. It's funny because I got involved in the last few weeks of them as C&K Basildon, and then we changed the name the following season to AFC Basildon, and then we realised that financially, if we wanted to take this good group of girls on, we needed the support, because we couldn't even afford to get a minibus to a game and stuff like that. We was relying on the girls absolutely doing everything, paying the facilities. We were playing, we did have that season when we was AFC Basildon in the National League, and this is the crime. The girls were paying £200 to play football at that level, which is, if you put that to any other team in that league, that ain't happening. No one's paying to play football. They're either getting some expenses, or the very minimum, it's free. So we had to change that, otherwise we was going to lose all the girls. But amazingly, they stayed with us for that season, and we had relatively success with that. We got to the County Cup final, but unfortunately that was cancelled, and we was sitting pretty in the league. But so we made that executive decision that we needed to get some assistance, and then sometimes it's all about timing. And we saw a tweet by Spencer that he was looking for a women's team to come under the banner, because he made some promise the previous year in the back of the Women's World Cup that he was looking to obviously help a women's club. And then we met quite quickly, and then he said he had around about 80 or 90 clubs interested in coming under the banner, and we was the first one he met. And after that, he was saying it was a no-brainer. We was all going to be together, and now we are. Pretty much 1 year down the line to this day, actually, that we became hashtag.
So is your league been stopped, or is it going to restart?
Yeah, the final decision's not been made yet. We're not going to know. Today's the 5th of March, but we're not going to know until the middle of March. So they've told us to expect a decision somewhere between the 15th and the 19th of March. And surveys went out, and we expressed an interest to continue. There was different formats proposed, where we played just one round of fixtures and then do an average point per games. To be honest, we just want to help, ourselves. We want to obviously play football, because it's not just good for the club, it's great for the girls' mentality, that social interaction. We're all missing that. But ultimately as well, if this can just help with the teams in our league get promoted, and create that promotion and relegation system again, because last year was okay, we accepted it. 1 year, 2 years, it's going to have a detrimental effect on some of those clubs that really want to go on.
No, definitely. So so your plans are, hopefully to get to sort of the championship with this team club, Australia?
Yeah, I'd say tier 3, the next step up. I think let's be realistic. At the moment, as I said, we're not paying the girls, so we're going up to tier 3, where you're going to have a lot of teams that have got big budgets, and they're going to be paying their girls a lot of money. We know from speaking to teams like Crawley Wash and playing with them, they've got a healthy budget. Twice the size of what Ipswich have, and we're going to need a lot of sponsorship if we're going to be able to compete at the top end. So if our aim is to get into tier 3, and then it's to stabilise ourselves, make sure that we can sustain where we are. But that could be success in itself, in the sense of being the best club in Essex, providing the girls with a platform to be able to then hopefully push them on into the higher levels. And should our financial situation improve, then definitely we have the intentions to go up. But the financial situation is everything. You've got to be able to not compete, but you've got to be equal. You've got to be on a par with other clubs. Otherwise, you end up just going up and down, and that's going to be no fun for anyone.
Yeah, definitely. So on that, if you go up to tier 3, do you have to have certain facilities in place? Is there a league stipulation, or is it the same as tier 4?
Yeah, I mean, actually, you're right. There are certain facilities that you do need in place, but pretty much, I'd say the top clubs in tier 3 meet those requirements anyway. So it's all about stands and playing in men's stadiums that are of a certain standard in the first place. So we share our ground with Canvey Island, and obviously they're a National League club anyway. So we meet those requirements.
That's good.
But we're only tenants. We're not. They could move us out any time if they wanted to.
No, that's fair enough. So from your, so we'll wrap it up there. So from your ambitions now, Jason, what for the next couple of years, what are you looking to do? Obviously, you've got these projects going, trying to make them successful in the next couple of years.
The projects are new. So I want to spend some time with these projects and try and get some tangible results from them. the moment we've got a short-term plan of how that looks, but we all know in life that after those 3 months, you've probably got a different plan, and on how those projects are going to materialise. So I think at the moment, I just want to see these projects work. You know, I'm still keen UCFB stuff because it's okay teaching people on a degree, but at the same time, if you're just teaching them on a degree and you can't get them into industry, then you're failing. So I want to try and encourage students to get involved in, and we've created a platform actually outside of the UCFB, which is called the Modern Football Group. And it's a platform where we've just got students across different universities engaging, those that are like-minded, sports business and football business. And we've got a couple of universities, one from Deakin University in Melbourne and Qatar University over in Qatar, where students are all in this group, all interacting, sharing resources, ideas. But we also then team up with organisations to help, give them actual real life projects to work in. So it just helps boost their, as I said, their portfolios. So when they leave, they can actually turn around and go, I've got a degree in football business, but I've also done this project with one of the projects that we're just about to start with is with a group called Four Nations, and these are a football consultancy business in Europe, and they want us to do a project in Mexico, analysing divisions 2 and 3. So we're going to be looking at doing that sort of thing and producing a business report for them on potential avenues for investment and sponsorship. So that's quite keen. I'm keen to see that one through. Futsal, obviously, as I said, I want to get that going. Girls, hopefully, get them into tier 3. So lots of short-term goals.
Yeah, definitely. So Jason, I appreciate your time, and obviously you've got lots of different things going, different projects going on. So I wish you all the best on all of those, and hopefully they can start sooner rather than later. This episode will go onto our YouTube channel. The scheduled date hasn't been set yet, but we'll put it out there on Twitter and Facebook for the Sports Coffee. Jason, I'll need to get you, if you've got a Twitter account handle, I'll have to get that off you so we can promote your episode once it goes out, and we can do that off air. That's fine. So hope everybody enjoyed the show. We had a little bit of interference with signal at times, but it was still great to get your ideas and what's going on in your different projects. So brilliant. We'll be back soon, so keep tuned.